Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books on this most auspicious day of Sri Krishna Janmashtami. And by the arrangement of the Lord, we're starting the 10th canto on this day. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Wasn't planned, it just happened. So, I did 4 hours of recording this morning and 4 hours of japa top of my lungs. So I don't know how much voice I have left, but whatever I have is yours. Hare Krishna. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava ki jai. Shri Krishna Janmashtami ki jai. We have new guests here and they are in ecstasy. They all look bright and spiritual. So let's get right into it. There was a great soul, Srila Sanatana Goswami, in our line of spiritual authorities, who wrote a glorification of this book that we're going to be reading from, the Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's very deep, and you listen to it carefully, then it'll help you to enter with the proper spirit. It's the Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, and it goes like this. Sarvastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drik Prada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandotita Ditya Shri Krishna Paridhartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nisdadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, sadhu tadayin, atini chochatakada, hanamun chagadachin mam, premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Sri Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a big statement. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Godhead is the Absolute Truth. Everything is included in the Supreme Absolute Truth. But Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Supreme Personality. He's the source of all other personalities of Godhead. And He's the source of the material energy, and He's the source of all the individual souls, that's us. And He's the maintainer and the manifester of the spiritual world, which is an eternal place. Beyond the material world, there's a spiritual world. And there Krishna lives eternally. And from Him emanates everything. Therefore, He's the source of all other incarnations, all other spiritual authorities, all energies, and everything. So therefore, this book, we've come to the 10th canto. There's 12 cantos altogether. And the first 9 cantos explain the different potencies and different incarnations and different manifestations of Krishna throughout the history of the universe. Of course, not all of them, because the universe has been around for a long time. But the most significant points in history at which Krishna appears or Krishna's pure devotees appears. But now we've reached, after preparing ourselves, but you guys are not ordinary, because you're coming right in at the 10th canto, which is very special. If we hear the whole Bhagavatam from the first canto on through the 9th canto, we get prepared for hearing what you're about to hear. But you must be special. So we're going to go right to the 10th canto. And it's Krishna Janmashtami, so it's very, very special. Okay. Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1. King Pariksit said, "My dear Lord, you have elaborately described the dynasties of both the moon god and the sun god, with the exalted and wonderful character of their kings." So King Pariksit is the person who is hearing the Bhagavatam for the first time, and Sukadeva Goswami is the person he's talking to, and he's reciting it for the first time in public in this age. Purport. At the end of the 9th canto, 24th chapter, Sukadeva Goswami summarized the activities of Krishna. He spoke of how Krishna had personally appeared in order to reduce the burden of the earth, how he had manifested his pastimes as a householder, and how, soon after his birth, he had transferred himself to his Brajabhumi Leela. Pariksit Maharaj, being naturally a devotee of Krishna, wanted to hear more about Lord Krishna. Therefore, to encourage Sukadeva Goswami to continue speaking about Krishna and give further details, he thanked Sukadeva Goswami for having described the activities of Krishna in brief. Sukadeva Goswami had said, "Jato gatak pitrigihad rajam editarto hatva ripun suchashatani charo kritor duradaha utpadateshu purushat kratubi samije atmanam atmanigamam patayan janeshu." The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, known as Leela Purushottama, appeared as the son of Vasudeva, but immediately left his father's home and went to Vrindavan to expand his loving relationships with his confidential devotees. In Vrindavan, the Lord killed many demons, and afterward he returned to Dwarka, where, according to Vedic principles, he married many wives who were the best of women, begot through them hundreds of sons, who performed sacrifices for his own worship to establish the principles of householder life. Srimad-Bhagavatam 9:24-66. The Yadu dynasty belonged to the family descending from Soma, the moon god. Although the planetary systems are so arranged that the sun comes first before the moon, Pariksit Maharaj gave more respect to the dynasty of the moon god, the Soma Bangsha, because in the Yadava dynasty, descending from the moon, Krishna had appeared. There are two different Kshatriya families of the royal order, one descending from the king of the moon planet, and the other descending from the king of the sun. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, he generally appears in a Kshatriya family, that's a royal family, because he comes to establish religious principles and the life of righteousness. According to the Vedic system, the Kshatriya family is the protector of the human race. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as Lord Ramachandra, he appeared in the Surya Vangsha, the family descending from the sun god. And when he appeared as Lord Krishna, he did so in the Yadu dynasty, or Yadu Vangsha, whose descent was from the moon god. In the 9th canto, 24th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, there is a long list of kings of the Yadu Vangsha. All the kings in both the Soma Vangsha and Surya Vangsha were great and powerful, and Maharaj Pariksit praised them very highly. Ragyam Chobaya Vangshayanam Charitam Paramadbhutam. Nonetheless, he wanted to hear more about the Soma Vangsha, because that was the dynasty in which Krishna had appeared. The supreme abode of the personality of Godhead Krishna is described in the Brahma Samhita as the abode of Chintamani. Chintamani prakada sadmashu kalpa vriksha lakshavriteshu surabir abhipaliyantam. The Vrindavan Dham on this earth is a replica of that same abode. That Vrindavan Dham is about 125 kilometers from Delhi, in between Delhi and Agra, where the Taj Mahal is. In between there is the Vrindavan area where Krishna appeared and had his pastimes 5,000 years ago. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8:20, in the spiritual sky there is another eternal nature, transcendental to manifested and unmanifested matter. The manifested world can be seen in the form of many stars and planets, such as the sun and moon, but beyond this is the unmanifested, which is imperceptible to those who are embodied. And beyond this unmanifested matter is the spiritual kingdom, which is described in the Bhagavad Gita as supreme and eternal. That kingdom is never annihilated. Although material nature is subject to repeated creation and annihilation, that spiritual nature remains as it is eternally. In the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, that spiritual nature, the spiritual world, is described as Vrindavan, Goloka Vrindavan, or Brajadam. The elaborate description of the above-mentioned shloka from the 9th canto, Jato Gatak Pitrigrihad, Bhagavatam 9:24-66, will be found here in the 10th canto. So let me explain one thing. This unmanifested spiritual energy is eternal. Now, we can't see it with our material eyes, but we do have experience of spiritual energy, even in this lifetime. But we haven't been taught how to recognize it or how to consider it. But consider this, that each one of us is changing our bodies. We may have been taught by our mothers and fathers that you have the same body, it's just growing. But what growing means, according to science, is that every cell of the body is changing constantly. And every 7 years or so, our body is completely different. Every cell of the body is changed every 7 years. That's the material manifestation. That's the manifested universe. All the forms of the universe are manifested. They're temporary. But we know already, because we remember having been in a body that was this big. Well, I don't know. Everybody remembers a different age. Yeah. Anyway, I remember one thing happened at 3. I remember more things that happened at 4. I definitely remember things that happened at 5. You remember? Right? Mm-hmm. So you were there. But your body is completely different. Therefore, that energy is eternal. It's not changing, even though the material energy is changing. The forms of the material energy are changing. The energy is conserved. We agree with the scientists on that point. The material energy is conserved, but the forms that are made of the material energy are temporary. But there's a world, which is the source of this world, the prototype of this world, in which all the forms are completely spiritual. They're eternal. They don't disintegrate over time. They don't change over time. That's what they're talking about. And that's where Krishna has his eternal abode. And he comes into this material world, and he brings with him a replica of that spiritual world. And he manifests that to the eyes of almost everyone, or everyone that was there at that time and place in Vrindavan Dham. So by hearing this book, you can actually, with your spiritual intelligence, enter into that spiritual realm and experience tastes that are different than the tastes we normally look for in the material world. We're actually looking for spiritual tastes. That's why they have some new designer drug, which is called ecstasy. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for ecstasy. But ecstasy you can't get ecstasy from a material thing, from a material object. You can only get ecstasy through the soul in contact with spiritual energy. And that's what the Bhagavatam is. Text 2. O best of Munis, you have also described the descendants of Yadu, who were very pious and strictly adherent to religious principles. Now, if you will, kindly describe the wonderful, glorious activities of Lord Vishnu or Krishna, who appeared in that Yadu dynasty with Baladev, his plenary expansion. Purport. The Brahma Samhita 5.1 explains that Krishna is the origin of the Vishnu Tattva. Ishvarak Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. Yasyaika nivashatakalam atavalambhya jivanti loma milaja jagadandanataha Vishnur mahan sa ihayasya kalavishesho govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. The Brahmas, the heads of the innumerable universes, live only for the duration of one breath of Maha Vishnu. I worship Govinda, the original Lord, of whom Maha Vishnu is but a portion of a plenary portion. So what this means is that the whole cosmic manifestation, which is made up of many, many, many millions of universes, we're in one universe, is the length of the time which it takes that universe to unfold, and all the things and all the histories and all the generations and kalpas that happen. 311 trillion, 80 billion years happens in our time, one breath of Mahavishnu. And then when he breathes in, it's all drawn back into his body. So one breath of Mahavishnu is 311 trillion, 80 billion years of our time. So that means that, and he is an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of Krishna. So in Krishna Loka, the time it takes for the whole universe to be created, go through all of its things, all of its changes, and be dissolved, is a blink of the eye. It's a blink of his eye. So if we learn to see things through God's eye, rather through ours, which is very limited, controlled and limited by 3 dimensions, and time and space, then we will be able to be free from material anxiety. Because when we see so many things going on, we feel so many things going on within our own body and minds and in the world. But if we could understand that all those things are just not even a blink in the eye of God, then we can see that it's not so serious as it seems. When you dream at night, sometimes something very wonderful will happen, sometimes something very horrible will happen. But then when we wake up, and while it's happening, it seems like it's the end of the world. I have this reoccurring dream where I'm going into an airport and my bags get lost and the money and it's happened to me a couple of times. Maybe that's why it happens in my dream. And the feeling is just, oh my God, now what? And then sometimes I just wake up at that moment and I get this rush of relief. Oh, I look around, oh yeah, it's still here. Yeah, okay, everything's still here, right? So, but while we're in the dream, it appears like a disaster. So we're living in a dream. We're living in a dream. It's the dream of Maha Vishnu. So once we get this idea and assimilate it, digest it and assimilate it, then the things that happen in the world to us and to others, and even the biggest disasters in the world, they won't disturb us as much. And this is real knowledge. This is transcendental knowledge. It's not some sentimental clearing of the mind and staying still and seeing the light and all of that. This is all sentiment. But transcendental knowledge is the knowledge that gives you the vision to look through the world, to the world, in a way that relieves you from material anxiety, that relieves you from suffering. Even the same things are going on around us. Govinda, Krishna, is the original personality of Godhead. Krishna's tu, Bhagavan, Swayam. Even Lord Maha Vishnu, who by his breathing creates many millions upon millions of universes, is Lord Krishna's Kala Vishesha, or plenary portion of a plenary portion. Mahavishnu is a plenary expansion of Sankarshan, who is a plenary expansion of Narayana. Narayana is a plenary expansion of the Chaturvyuha, and the Chaturvyuha are plenary expansions of Baladev, the first manifestation of Krishna. Therefore, when Krishna appeared with Baladev, all the Vishnu tattvas appeared with him. So there's two tattvas, well there's three tattvas. There's Vishnu tattva, there's Jiva tattva, and there's the Maya Shakti, or material Shakti, material energy. The Vishnu tattva are expansions of God's personal, his person, full person. The Jiva tattva, that's us, is an expansion of an infinitesimal particle of the Supreme. That doesn't mean that we put us all together, you get Krishna. No, any more than if you put all the photons in the sunshine together, you'll get the sun. The photons are always there with the sun. The sun is always there with the protons. So the living beings are eternal, individual, and the Supreme Source, personality of Godhead, and his personal expansions are also there eternally as individual persons. And the material energy is the energy called separated energy, which separates us, the individual souls, from the vision of the original Supreme Soul, Krishna. Just like the sun shines down on the water, the ocean, and creates cloud, and then the cloud covers us, or covers our vision of the sun. So the material energy is a creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Sun, and it covers the vision of the individual souls. You can't cover the sun with a cloud. neither can you clever Krishna with the material energy. But to our vision, we can't see Krishna as a result of being covered by the material energy. So the whole process of Krishna consciousness, the whole process of the culture of Krishna consciousness, and all the things that we do as a result of in our life, in our spiritual life, is meant to wake us up so that we can be conscious and see that Krishna come out of that cloud of the material energy. Maharaj Pariksit requested Sukadeva Goswami to describe Krishna and his glorious activities. Another meaning may be derived from this verse as follows. Although Sukadeva Goswami was the greatest Muni, he could describe Krishna only partially, ankshena, for no one can describe Krishna fully. It is said that Anantadev has thousands of heads, but although he tries to describe Krishna with thousands of tongues, his descriptions are still incomplete. Text 3. The Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the cause of the cosmic manifestation, appeared in the dynasty of Yadu. Please tell me elaborately about his glorious activities and character from the beginning to the end of his life. Purport. In this verse, the words Kritavan Yani indicate that all the different activities Krishna performed while present on earth are beneficial to human society. If religionists, philosophers, and people in general simply hear the activities of Krishna, they will be liberated. We have described several times that there are two kinds of Krishna katha, represented by the Bhagavad Gita, spoken personally by Krishna about himself, and Srimad-Bhagavatam, which we're reading today, spoken by Sukadeva Goswami about the glories of Krishna. Anyone who becomes even slightly interested in Krishna katha is liberated. So the feeling that you got when you came here the first time, and hopefully the feeling that is growing and will continue to grow as you hear, is this feeling. Just a slight interest in this Krishna katha is so powerful, it will liberate you from material existence. But you have to be brave. You have to be heroic, because the whole material world is going in an opposite direction. And sometimes when you hear, where are you going? The Hare Krishnas, oh, these crazy people, what are you doing over there? Why don't you be normal and come to this party that I'm throwing tonight, and we'll have a good time. Etc., 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 etc. Kirtanad eva Krishnasya mokta sangha param brajet. Bhagavatam 12:351. Simply by chanting or repeating Krishna katha, one is liberated from the contamination of Kali Yuga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised, Yarideka Tarikaha Krishna Upadesh. This is the mission of Krishna consciousness, to hear about Krishna and thus be liberated from material bondage. Text 4. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? So that may sound like a very strong statement. Just open up your news channel and check out what's happening every single day in this country. People are killing each other left, right, and center. Even mothers are killing their own children. Purport. In India, it is the practice among the general populace to hear about Krishna, either from the Bhagavad Gita or from Srimad-Bhagavatam, in order to gain relief from the disease of repeated birth and death. Although India is now fallen, when there is a message that someone will speak about the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad-Bhagavatam, thousands of people still gather to hear. This verse indicates, however, that such recitation of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam must be done by persons completely freed from material desires, nivrita tarshai. Everyone within this material world, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, is full of material desires. But when thus engaged for sense enjoyment, and everyone is busy in sense gratification, but when thus engaged, one cannot fully understand the value of Krishna katha, either in the form of the Bhagavad Gita or of Srimad-Bhagavatam. If we hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from liberated persons, this hearing will certainly free us from the bondage of material activities. But hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam spoken by a professional reciter cannot actually help us achieve liberation. So this is why, personally, I read from Srila Prabhupada's books directly every day to make sure that anyone who comes who hears will get it from a liberated soul. And by absorbing ourselves and taking seriously, we will become liberated ourselves by doing this. And then we can help other people become free from material anxiety and confusion. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said, Krishna katha is very simple. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As he himself explains, Mattat Paratanam Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya. O Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Bhagavad Gita 7:7. Simply by understanding this fact, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can become a liberated person. But especially in this age, because people are interested in hearing the Bhagavad Gita from unscrupulous persons who depart from the simple presentation of the Bhagavad Gita and distort it for their personal satisfaction, they fail to derive the real benefit. There are big scholars, politicians, philosophers, and scientists who speak on the Bhagavad Gita in their own polluted way, and people in general hear from them, being uninterested in hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a devotee. A devotee is one who has no other motive for reciting the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam than to serve the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore advised us to hear the glories of the Lord from a realized person. Yaha Bhagavata Paravaishnavera. Unless one is personally a realized soul in the science of Krishna consciousness, a neophyte should not approach him to hear about the Lord, for this is strictly forbidden by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who quotes from the Padma Purana, Avaishnava Mukod Girnam Puttam Harikatamritam Shravanam Naivakartavyam Sarpochishtam Yatapayaha. One should avoid hearing from a person not situated in Vaishnava behavior. A Vaishnava is Nivrita Trishna, that is, he has no material purpose, for his only purpose is to preach Krishna consciousness. So-called scholars, philosophers, and politicians exploit the importance of the Bhagavad Gita by distorting its meaning for their own purposes. Therefore, this verse warns that Krishna katha should be recited by a person who is Nivritta Trishna. Sukadeva Goswami epitomizes the proper reciter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, and Pariksit Maharaj, who purposefully left his kingdom and family prior to meeting death, epitomizes the person fit to hear it. A qualified reciter of Srimad-Bhagavatam gives the right medicine, Vabhaushadhi, for the conditioned souls. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to train qualified preachers to recite Srimad-Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita throughout the entire world, so that people in general, in all parts of the world, may take advantage of this movement and thus be relieved of the threefold miseries of material existence. Now, Srila Prabhupada gave us an example of this, which is very clear. Before Prabhupada came from India, there were many translations of the Gita. Many, hundreds. But no one became a devotee of Krishna from hearing those translations of the Gita. But the instruction of the Gita is to become a devotee of Krishna. Manmanabhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Always think of me, become my devotee, offer your homage unto me. So Prabhupada came, and all of a sudden there were thousands of us in just a short period of time. And now it's spreading all over the world. Therefore, this is what the meaning is. If we hear the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam from pure devotees, representatives of Krishna, who have agreed to repeat what Krishna says without changing it for their own personal aggrandizement or their own personal popularity or their own personal wealth or whatever, for whatever reason, but just to make people happy, just for the purpose of pleasing the people who are hearing, it has a different effect. Such hearing has a different effect. So the fact that there were hundreds of Gitas present on the earth translated into English before Srila Prabhupada came out from India, who was the first absolutely pure devotee of Krishna to come from India, and the fact that the Krishna consciousness movement started spreading so rapidly. In 12 years, he came here when he was 70 years old. He had never left India before. He came with no money, no friends, no contacts, no government support, nothing. Just himself and a couple of trunks of books that he had written in India. And in 12 years, he went around the world 14 times, from scratch, with no followers. First year in New York City, no followers. How he did that? That's like a miracle, a real miracle. And he proceeded in 12 years to write all these books, 80 books, after he was 70 years old. Opened up 108 centers exactly. Initiated more than 5,000 devotees who are doing now, a lot of them, what I'm doing now. This is not possible for a human person to do. This is proof of his liberated position, his liberated condition. So when you hear, yeah, it is. There was an article published in Newsweek magazine many years ago. I don't remember exactly the year, but it was many years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And the name of it was Late Bloomers. And it selected 5 persons in the history of the modern world which did the most service for humanity after a certain cutoff year. I think it was 60. After 60. When they started their, whatever it was they did, after 60. Prabhupada got extra kudos because he started it when he was 70. And he was one of the 5 people that they chose. So this is not an ordinary thing. Hare Krishna. The instructions of the Bhagavad Gita and the descriptions of Srimad-Bhagavatam are so pleasing that almost anyone suffering from the threefold miseries of material existence will desire to hear the glories of the Lord from these books and thus benefit on the path of liberation. 2 classes of men, however, will never be interested in hearing the message of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam. Those who are determined to commit suicide and those determined to kill cows and other animals for the satisfaction of their own tongues. Although such persons may make a show of hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam at the Bhagavata Saptaha, this is but another creation of the karmis, who cannot, that means materialists, who cannot derive any benefit from such a performance. The word pashugnat is important in this connection. Pashugna means butcher. Persons fond of performing ritualistic ceremonies for elevation to the higher planetary systems must offer sacrifices, yagyas, by killing animals. Lord Buddhadev therefore rejected the authority of the Vedas because his mission was to stop animal sacrifices, which are recommended in Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Nindasi yagya bider ahaha shuti jatam sataya ridaya dashita pashugatam Kesavadrita Buddha Sharira Jaya Jagadisha Hare Gita Govinda. So this means that this movement is not sectarian. It describes all the incarnations, bona fide incarnations of God that have occurred, and even those that will occur in the future. It's not a sectarian religion. It's a spiritual science. Whether you're Buddhist or Krishna or Jew or Hindu or Muslim or whatever you are, you get the same blood. You come out of the same mother's womb in the same way. You leave your body in the same way. And all the differences that they say, it's all just fluff. We're all actually the same. There's only one source of everything. Even though animal sacrifices are sanctioned in Vedic ceremonies, men who kill animals for such ceremonies are considered butchers. Butchers cannot be interested. What to speak of the slaughterhouses that are going on today? You know, right now they're burning down the Amazon forest simply to clear land, to graze more cows, to kill. And it's legal. That's right. And 20% of the oxygen that we breathe comes from there. This is called demoniac. They don't care about the quality of life. All they care about is money. Their God has become money. Butchers cannot be interested in Krishna consciousness, for they are already materially allured. Their only interest lies in developing comforts for the temporary body. Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam taya pradita chetasam vyabhasaya buddhi samado navadiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Manusya janama poya Radha Krishna na bhajiya janiya shuniya bishakainu. Anyone who is not Krishna conscious and who therefore does not engage in the service of the Lord is also a pashugna, for he is willingly drinking poison. Such a person cannot be interested in Krishna katha because he still has a desire for material sense gratification. He is not nivritti trishna, as it is said, Trivargikas te purusha vimukha hari me dasha. Those interested in trivarga, that is, in dharma, artha, and kama, are religious for the sake of achieving a material position with which to gain better facilities for sense gratification. Such persons are killing themselves by willingly keeping themselves in the cycle of birth and death. They cannot be interested in Krishna consciousness. For Krishna katha, topics about Krishna consciousness, there must be a speaker and a hearer, both of whom can be interested in Krishna consciousness. If they are no longer interested in material topics, one can actually see how this attitude automatically develops in persons who are Krishna conscious. Although the devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement are quite young men, well, that was a long time ago. This was written back in 1976, when I was still a young man. Although the devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement are quite young men, they no longer read materialistic newspapers, magazines, and so on, for they are no longer interested in such topics. Nivrittatarshai. They completely give up the bodily understanding of life. For topics concerning Uttama Shloka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the spiritual master speaks and the disciple hears with attention. Unless both of them are free from material desires, they cannot be interested in topics of Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master and disciple do not need to understand anything more than Krishna, because simply by understanding Krishna and talking about Krishna, one becomes a perfectly learned person. Kasmin tu bhagavo vigyate sarvam idam vigyatam babhititi. Mundakupanishad 1:3. The Lord sits within everyone's heart, and by the grace of the Lord, the devotee receives instructions directly from the Lord Himself, who says in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham hridisanavisto matak smritir jnanam apavanam cha vedaishcha sarvar aham eva vedya vedantakrit vedavit eva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. And I am the knower, I am the compiler of Vedanta. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Krishna consciousness is so exalted that one who is perfectly situated in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the spiritual master is fully satisfied by reading Krishna katha, as found in Srimad-Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, and similar Vedic literatures. Since merely talking about Krishna is so pleasing, we can simply imagine how pleasing it is to render service to Krishna. What to speak if we go back to the spiritual world and meet Him face to face? When discourses on Krishna katha take place between the liberated spiritual master and his disciple, others also sometimes take advantage of hearing these topics and also benefit. These topics are the medicine to stop the repetition of birth and death. The cycle of repeated birth and death, by which one takes on different bodies again and again, is called bhava, or bhava roga. If anyone, willingly or unwillingly, hears Krishna katha, his bhava roga, the disease of birth and death, will certainly stop. Therefore, Krishna katha is called bhavaushadha, the remedy to stop the repetition of birth and death. Karmis, or persons attached to material sense enjoyment, generally cannot give up their material desires. But Krishna katha is such a potent medicine that if one is induced to hear Krishna kirtan, he will certainly be free from this disease. A practical example is Dhruva Maharaj, who at the end of his tapasya means austerity, was fully satisfied. When the Lord wanted to give Dhruva a benediction, Dhruva refused it. Swamin kritartosmi vadam nayache. My dear Lord, he said, I am fully satisfied. I do not ask for any benediction for material sense gratification. We actually see that even young boys and girls in the Krishna consciousness movement have given up their long practice of bad habits like illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. Because Krishna consciousness is so potent and it gives them full satisfaction, they are no longer interested in material sense gratification. Text 5-7. So that means that the soul, in its original condition, is an enjoyer. In the spiritual world, our bodies, our forms, are made of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, or pure spiritual pleasure. Therefore, we're always looking for those things when we're in the material world. But we're looking in the wrong place, as I said the other day. Therefore, there's billion-dollar industries of, cosmetic companies and health supplements and exercise. Going?
Somebody just got here, somebody go.
Excuse me?
Somebody that was supposed to leave just got here, somebody go find.
Okay. If in the temple, there's a program going on that goes on to midnight. Did you know?
I'm staying for the rest of the day. I'm just going to go find her to leave her so she's not alone.
Bring her here if you can. If not,
Okay.
over there.
Okay.
Meet you there.
You're going to go over there later on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Huh?
Let's just ask questions at the end.
I have a lot of questions.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to it in 4 minutes. Actually, we'll stop there and we'll have questions. It's good. It's a good time. What was I saying? I was in the middle of something.
Oh, we were talking about like cosmetic.
Yeah, supplements or exercise things. We're all trying to stay young, but we get old. We don't want to get old, and we're doing everything: cosmetic surgery, with the Botox, transplants, replacements. This replacement, that replacement, this replacement, that replacement, hoping that he can stay alive for as long as possible, but they can't.
We all gotta go.
Yeah, we're all going to leave. And the goal of human life is to find out who we are before we leave. So we can leave our bodies properly and go back to the spiritual world where we came from and where we belong. That's the essence of Krishna consciousness. And these books are so deep and so meaningful. There's a lot to it. It's not that you can be just whimsical. You have to be serious. But once you are serious and you read these books all the way through, cover to cover, you learn so much that you'll understand the meaning of this sentence that we heard before, that if you become Krishna conscious, you know everything. Not that you know everything in the same way that Krishna knows everything, but Krishna in the heart becomes so pleased with you that when you need something, he's there to give you the intelligence and the knowledge. So now there's the internet. Everyone wanted to know everything. So the combined desire of everyone in the universe, in the earth at least, to know everything resulted in the internet, and everyone can just push a button. Excuse me, Siri, what is it? Okay, thanks. Send it to someone else, and in this way everybody gets this false idea that they know everything. But they don't know everything. They know just a little time. We're a speck in the universe. Speck in the universe. But we have those desires, not to die, not to get old, to enjoy, to own, to control, all those things, because that's who we are in the spiritual world. There's a disease called amnesia. You've heard of it? It means by either a blow to the head or a traumatic experience, we forget who we are. It's a clinical condition. There's plenty of evidence. And if a person finds a person who has amnesia and is wandering somewhere, forgetful where their family is and where they belong, then if they bring them there, that's the treatment. But when the person first comes into the home where they used to be, now that they've forgotten who they are, it's there, the memory is there, but it's pushed into the subconscious by some event or some traumatic experience. They feel uncomfortable, but after a while, it comes back. So that's actually what we're doing. This bhakti yoga is the yoga of organizing our lives in such a way that the spiritual atmosphere we're in the familiar spiritual atmosphere of the spiritual world. The deities, the temple, our decoration, what we hear, what we eat, how we live, how we deal with one another. It's all designed to cause us to wake up. And if we stay long enough, we will wake up. That's the promise. It's not easy, because the material world is very powerful. It's caused us to come here, and it's caused us to forget for so many lifetimes, so it's not easy. But the goal, the gain, the profit is well worth it. Okay, we'll stop here for our reading for the night, and somebody's got questions.
I did have one, but I'm still trying to form it properly.
Okay, well, take your time. Yes.
So you said something about like people who are into material things or commit suicide, how when they pass, they won't be like interested into Krishna consciousness. Is it just harder for them, or is it something like
Impossible.
it's impossible? So
Yeah.
if someone committed suicide or was in
Well, there's two. The word suicide here has a poetic meaning also, not just taking your own life. It also means doing things that are causing you to stay in forgetfulness. Because if you act in a way that when you leave your body, you come back into another body and then another and another, that is committing suicide. Or if you accept a philosophy which teaches you that at the end there's void, there's nothing, that's also spiritual suicide. So
like
either
atheism or something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Atheism, impersonalism, which is another form of atheism, impersonal philosophy. There is God, yes, but He's light, and we'll merge into, and actually I'm God, and you're God, and we're all God. I mean, it's anybody who's got a little bit of sense and hears that, they say, I don't think so. I don't think I'm causing the sun to come up. I had a friend when I was a hippie back in the days in the 60s, 70s, and I had a friend who was meditating, and he would sit there in front of, in San Francisco, so he would sit there in front of the horizon, and he would meditate like this. And when the sun came up, he would say to me, you see, I did it. I am God. I just made the sun. The guy was so deluded that he was thinking that by thinking the sun's going to come up, and when it came up, he thought that he was doing it. That's how powerful the material energy is. It can convince anyone of anything at any moment.
I remembered my question.
Yes.
So, you were talking about the disease of birth and death, right?
Yeah.
Like life and death. Well, is there always a way to know if you were trapped in that cycle of like birth and death disease? And
Well, it begins. Yes, there is a way to know that, but it begins by understanding what's happening in this life, as I hinted at before. There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. It goes like this: Dehino smin yata dehe komaram jovanam jada. Dehino smin yata dehe means the embodied soul. The soul embodied inside a material body passes through komaram jovanam jada, babyhood or boyhood, youth, and old age. Tatadi hantir praptir. And at the end, he passes into another body. And dhiras tatra namuyati. One who was actually dhira. Dhira, the word dhira means sober. One who was actually sober, who was in knowledge, is not disturbed at that time. But we do know that we've passed through those bodies in this life. And that's the evidence that the soul is different than the body. It's evidence that what the Bhagavad Gita is saying is true. So at the beginning it's theoretical. And if you live the life, walk your walk, walk your talk, That's a common saying nowadays.
Yeah.
Walk your talk. If you actually do this, if you actually follow the spiritual principles of bhakti yoga, of Krishna consciousness, then your eyes and your senses will awaken, and you will be able to perceive for yourself that you have been traveling from one body to another.
So I basically feel like I've actually been caught in the disease of life and death before.
Yes.
So you're saying that people that are caught in that normally have like materialistic desires.
Yes.
And so is there a way to like break that?
Yes.
You're here, aren't you?
Yes. That's the process. That's the process of Krishna consciousness. To break the cycle of birth and death means that you have to come to the point of understanding who you are and of changing your desire from material to spiritual, and then transferring your love from material objects and material things to the form of Krishna and to the personalities who are eternally living with Krishna in the spiritual world. Those things are all described in these books in a very, very sweet but profound way. That if you just stick with it, and it's not easy. We're not trying to paint a rosy picture here. It's very difficult. But if you can do it, if you can become attached to Krishna, then you can escape the cycle of birth and death. Because there's a structure. With me? Still? There's a structure. The material energy creates the material body. The soul enters it, but the super soul enters it with the soul. The super soul is an expansion of Krishna. And he's there to give knowledge. But if we ignore him, he responds accordingly. Just like if you meet a new person and they ignore you, oh, okay, you go to someone, It's like that. It's our nature. Yayatam mam prapadyante, tang stataiva bhajanli. If we approach him with indifference, he will be indifferent. If we hate him, that's atheism. He'll find a way to teach us a lesson. If we approach him with love and with service, he will respond with love and give us knowledge and give us protection and intelligence, how to come back to him. Tesham satadiyuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. Then satata means always, yuktanam, engaged. Engaged in what? Bhajatam, serving. How? Priti, with love. Bhajatam priti purvakam, fully, without hesitation, without resistance, without doubt. Then, dadami buddhi yogam tam, to that person, dadami, I give. Dadami buddhi yogam tam, I give the intelligence by which yenamam upayanti te, a person can come back to me. That's the system. There's the soul and the super soul. The soul is the conscious being, individual, that's conscious of this body. I'm not conscious of your body. You're not conscious of my body. If I pinch it, you can't feel it. You pinch yourself, I can't feel it. But there's one soul. In addition, it's not that they're the same. There's two souls in the body. Both individual, but one is the conscious being of all bodies. You pinch it, he feels it. You think a thought, he knows it. So he's there, and he goes with you from one body to the next, and he knows everything that you've done. He knows who needs to be connected with who in order to fulfill everyone's desires. So if you connect with that person, with Krishna, he will give you intelligence so that you can understand these books, so that you'll know what to do at the time of death and even before. like now, and you can be happy. And you can not only be happy, you can give happiness to others. It's inconceivable now. In the material world, everyone is so confused. There's so much suffering and confusion going on. People are just would rather blow somebody's head off rather than talk to them if they're a little different. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is so important. Correct. Fist bump. Yay. Thank you very much. Hey. Hi. Hare Krishna. How are you? Very, very good to see you. We're good and getting better. The more new people we see come in, the better we feel. Anyway, we're right in the middle of something. How are you feeling? Okay?
Yeah, we're feeling good.
Good. Good. Questions? Any more questions? We're right at the end of our reading, so you're coming in the middle, but don't worry, there's a whole festival about to happen over there, so you didn't miss out on anything. Yeah, well, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to meet you.
My pleasure to meet you.
Deep pleasure to meet you. Where are you from?
Originally from Guatemala, Central America.
Guatemala. Very nice.
And she was born here.
Yeah.
It's very nice to meet you. People from Guatemala and those places are very pious, very religious, spiritual.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fact. I lived he vivido en España por 6 años, muchos años atrás. Mi español es muy rústico, por falta de práctico. But anyway, I learned a lot about the hearts of Latin people.
So, the first question I asked you, does the answer you gave him kind of apply to my question too? Because he was asking like if those like the material like feeling or whatever, like how he felt like before he had that, and how you said, well, you know, kind of like the door's open now, and now he's like, he can open up the door by coming more. Does that apply to like my first question, kinda?
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
Okay.
Because there's transcendental sound. You know, the people who charge you money for a mantra, the so-called transcendental meditation people, and they'll tell you it's a secret. Don't tell anybody it's a secret mantra, otherwise it won't work. You give me your money and I'll give it to you. And then if you're smart and you start asking the others what your mantra is, you'll find out that it's the same. Yeah. So, but there's a grain of truth in it. There are transcendental sounds that if you associate with that sound, it has an effect of waking up the soul. Just like at night you put on an alarm clock that'll wake you up. Some people, if they get, I don't use the alarm clock anymore, but some people do need it to wake up in the morning. But this is a transcendental alarm clock. The sound of the holy name of God. This is not sectarian. In the Bible it also says, in the beginning there was the Word was God, and the Word was with God. So that Word is Krishna. In English it's called Christ. In Aramaic it's called Krista. In Greek it's called Christo. In Sanskrit it's called Krishna. It's the same name for the same Supreme Being, just in a different language. So that sound if we hear it from the proper persons who have heard it from the persons who have heard it from the persons, all the way back to Krishna, like in an unbroken wire, like a current, like the current, you have a, huh? Yeah, not like a chain, it's like a current. Like here's a plug point, if it's attached to the powerhouse by an unbroken wire, then you'll get the current when you plug into it. If the wire is broken somewhere between here and the powerhouse, you don't get the current. You have to call the power company, or pay your bill, or whatever it is. You know. So this sound that you've heard, that is so interesting and so powerful, that you taste it, even if you don't understand it, you taste it. It's a different quality of sound. I heard this sound from the founder of this movement, who's a liberated soul. And his spiritual master, he heard from him. His spiritual master heard from him. Back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 500 years ago, Krishna came personally 500 years ago, and he also came personally 5,000 years ago. And there's an unbroken line of persons who vibrated the sound. And now we're getting that sound unbroken, and therefore it has the effect. We all know this. You see that list of people? Top left hand corner. Krishna. Krishna spoke it to Brahma. Brahma spoke it to Narada. Narada spoke it to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva spoke it to Madhvacharya. And on down the line. So there's lots of people who are pseudo-spiritualists who take a part of this teaching or distort it or whatever, because they want to be the guru, or they want to be the cheese, the chief cheese, you know. But you can't become a spiritual teacher unless you have a spiritual teacher who has had a spiritual teacher, who all the way back to God. It started out like that in Catholicism, but it broke. That's the problem. And it's very difficult to find a line of spiritual authority which goes back to the source. Very difficult. And as this age that we're living in now progresses, it will be more and more difficult. That's why you're very fortunate. Mahabhagya, it says in Sanskrit language, Mahabhagya. Brahmate Konya Bhagavan Jeev. Guru Krishna Prasadi Poi Bhakti Lata Bij. There's a seed of devotion that's planted in the heart when you hear from these books, from liberated souls. And that seed, once it's planted, if you water the seed by hearing more and more, then just like when you plant a seed in the ground, eventually it sprouts. And if you keep watering and weeding and taking care and loving it, you know, eventually the plant will come and you'll get a peach or an apple or a whatever it is. In this case, you'll get the fruit of love of God. That's the basic process of Bhakti Yoga. And it's the same for everybody. Yes.
Got reflection, just gratitude from Hannah, and a question.
Hannah. Okay, Hannah, she's in Florida. She used to be here, now she's in Florida. Yeah.
All right.
Did you meet Nitya first? Yeah, Nitya, she's like everybody's mother, you know, she's so good. She's so good. Yeah.
All right. As we were reading about hearing from a self-realized soul, from a devotee who acts in Vaishnav behavior and does not act for material motives, I was really appreciating how Prabhupada is so compassionate to come down to a level that is so blatantly obvious for us to understand. In this age of Kali, or age of quarrel and hypocrisy. People who smoke and drink and have illicit affairs with other people comment on Krishna's instructions, but are hypocritical. Therefore, they have no realization or understanding. Prabhupada kindly just advised us, because we lack knowledge, don't listen to them. I can't fathom his compassion, how important it is for us to hear from someone who actually is acting in a way that Krishna advises. I was also reflecting on my own luck to have lived with a top Vaishnava devotee, Nitya Kishori, and to have watched her serve only Krishna every day no matter what, and how even more fortunate I was to meeting you, who does the same. By reading these books, you turn the light on, so to speak, and the best part about these books and your personal instructions is that they will teach you always. It never ends at some point, because you're never done learning and growing. The bliss therefore grows, because there's so much more to be gained. All glories to you, Srila Gurudev, and all glories to the devotees who give their lives to waking up sleeping souls and making people actually
glories
happy.
to Sri Krishna. See, the difference between a bona fide spiritual master and a bogus spiritual master is that the bona fide spiritual master doesn't point anyone to themselves. They point to Krishna. They teach the conditioned souls how to go to Krishna, how to please Krishna. Anyway, thanks for that. That was a very nice reflection.
And Carlos Lopez asks,
Carlos.
Why, yes.
You remember Carlos?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Carlos.
He had to work tonight till couldn't come.
Oh my
Well,
God.
Carlos.
Sorry,
Okay.
Carlos, but you're here anyway. You're hearing. Very good. Thank you.
He asks, why does Krishna need sacrifice?
He doesn't need sacrifice. We need sacrifice. Krishna has everything. He's the Yajna Purusha. He's the source of not only the sacrifice, he's the source of the ingredients. He's the source of the persons who are performing the sacrifice. He's the source of the consciousness that you get by performing sacrifice. He's Yajna Purusha. So he doesn't need anything, but we need to sacrifice. Because when we can sacrifice means basically to reconnect. Yoga. The word yoga means to add or connect. In India, when you learn your numbers and everything, the word yoga means to add. So, but the word yoga in a spiritual sense means to connect, to reconnect with the Supreme. Actually, we're already connected. We can't be unconnected, but we can be covered and separated, apparently separated. So the process of spiritual knowledge and spiritual activity and spiritual service, devotional service, is the process of connecting, reconnecting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by conscious, loving service. What did Jesus say? Let those who have ears hear. That means not everyone can hear. Everyone has ears. You got flaps, you got a hole, got little filaments in there that buzz so you can hear this, connect you with the world through sound. But not everyone can hear. What does that mean? It means consciousness. It means consciousness. It's not easy to be submissive to truth. People think honesty means to do what you say you're going to do, or pay your bills on time, or whatever. But real honesty means to be able to recognize and understand the truth when you hear it. So the two qualities which are required in the beginning, especially, but all the time, to be able to understand what we're saying. It's in the very, very beginning of this book we're reading. You missed part of it. Paramo nirmatsaranam satam. Dharma kaitavo tra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. Cheating religion is kicked out of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. There is no cheating religion in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And a person who can hear it is paramo nirmatsaranam. Nirmatsaranam means free from envy. In the material world, everyone's envious of everyone else. If someone does well, we feel bad rather than feel good. If you're not envious, when someone does well, you feel good. If you're envious, when someone does well, you feel bad, and you try to bring them down. And satam means to be honest. Truth is that we're not happy in the material world because we're spiritual, and the forms that we're trying to enjoy and own and control are temporary. So as long as you're trying to enjoy that which is temporary, you're suffering. Everyone. No exceptions. But the soul is eternal. When you dream at night, you have an experience. The soul is experiencing. When you're here in this waking state, the soul is experiencing. But when you're in the dream, you forget this existence. You're doing something else. You think you're whatever. You're here, you forget the dreaming body. But the soul is in both places, doing and experiencing, feeling, tasting, all these things. That's the person. So the spiritual quest is the quest to find out who that person is. Literally, in the spiritual world, we have an eternal identity. So the process of Krishna consciousness, of bhakti yoga, yoga means to connect, bhakti means with love or devotion. Never mind knowledge, never mind all these other things. They're good and they help us, but the real thing is to awaken our affection, our natural attraction and affection for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then we can see each other for what we are, rather than material bodies that look different and are different. And the thing that brings us together in this age, the religious principle that applies to everyone, is not a sectarian religion. That's why there's so much confusion. They're all thinking they've got a different God and they have different but it's actually the same thing, actually. Mm-hmm. When you go to church and you pray and they have those beautiful choirs and it'll just elevate you to spirit. We're not sectarian. But in this age, the Yuga Dharma, or the method that's recommended for everyone, is to chant the names of God together, to hear about the glories of God together. That's the process. So we're going to go over to the temple room, and we're going to, with the other devotees, we're going to wait for the moment of the appearance of Krishna in this material world. He comes once every 8,600,000,000 years. Yeah, it's a long time. The original form of God. There are other forms that come. From the original form comes once every 8,600,000,000 years. That's one day of Brahma. And then 4,500 years after, he comes again in the form of Lord Chaitanya. That's only 500 years ago. So now try to understand, put this into your computer, your hard drive, and try to contemplate this. The Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared 500 years ago only on this planet, and we're here 500 years later. So what's the difference between 500 and 8,600,000,000? What's the percentage?
I can tell you that math.
It's pretty small. It's close to zero. The chances of being that close to Lord Chaitanya and having heard that we're hearing the holy name and this holy scripture, just 11 persons removed from Krishna himself, Lord Chaitanya. And therefore it's very powerful. And there's no business. Everything's free. That's the difference. It's love. That's real love. There's nothing in it for us. It's just for you. The holy name, it's free. But if you take it and chant with the devotees, you'll get all your desires fulfilled. And it's not easy, as I was saying to them before you came in. It's not easy. The material energy is very strong. The material senses are very strong. They've taken us away from the spiritual world and spiritual knowledge and spiritual taste for so long. It's not easy to get it back. But it's there in everybody. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sabakabunoi. Every single soul has Krishna Prema, love for Krishna, in the heart. Everyone. And it just has to be reawakened. But the material energy now is so contaminated and so powerful, it's taking everyone away from God. And therefore there's scandals everywhere. Even in the Catholic Church, the priests, my God, what's happening? It's too much. So even you'll see things in this Christian conscious movement, persons who are not very advanced or who are influenced or whatever, just hear these books, because this is coming from a liberated soul. He came, he left, he made no mistakes. Okay, it is 7:30, so we're going to stop now and go over to the temple and party. Chant, dance, hear, have a good time. But this is the real party. This is the real thing. Okay?
Can I go through the garden and where the plants are? I don't want to look through.
You can do whatever you like. You're a spirit soul. You've been given a little bit of freedom. It's not full freedom, but each one of us has the freedom. You can decide or not. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Everyone out there in cyberspace, thank you very much. All glories to Sri Krishna Janmashtami. May you all have an ecstatic Janmashtami. And 12 o'clock, when Krishna appeared on this earth, on this day, 5,000 years ago, please be with him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We'll see you tomorrow at 4:30. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.